So let's talk through the solutions of these equations that we looked at in class today. This first one has a variable on both sides. Remember to always find that equal sign. And this one has distributive property. So I'm going to do 5 times d is 5d. 5 times 2 is 10. Then 3 times d is 3d. And 3 times negative 6 is negative 18. I have a variable on both sides, so I'm going to move the 3d. 5d minus 3d is 2d plus 10 equals a negative 18. Don't lose those negatives. Subtract 10 from both sides. 2d is negative 28. Divide both sides by 2. And d is negative 14. So this one's solution is less than 0. So I'm going to write the equation right here. Next one. Here's my equal sign. I see distributive on the left, so I'm just going to copy the negative 6m equals, then I'm going to do 2 times 3m is 6m, and 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Now typically I've told you to move the smallest variable, but since the smallest variable is over here all by itself, I would have to write a 0 there, 0 equals, and it just looks a little weird. So since it's by itself, I'm going to move this positive 6m. So I'm going to subtract it from both sides. Negative 6m minus 6m is negative 12m equals, and I'm going to bring down a negative 2. Now, be careful here. You look at this and you see, well, 2 goes into 12 6 times. It does, but that's not what we're going for here. We want to know negative 12 times what number equals negative 2. The negative 12 is with my variable, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 12. And I get m equals, now this is also where some of you will say, well, the answer is 6, but look at what you're saying. We're taking 2 and dividing by 12. That is not 6. That is not a whole number. We could divide and get a big ugly fraction, or we could look at this and say, hey, I mean not a big ugly fraction, a big ugly decimal. This is a fraction. A negative over a negative is a positive. 2 over 12 is 1/6. 1/6 is greater than 0. So this one goes right here because it's a positive number. Okay? All right, next one. A couple of ways to handle this one. I'm going to do it by distributing the fraction. If I do 2/3 times 3y, my 3's cancel, and I'm left with 2y. If I do 2/3 times 6, I get 4. So I get 2y plus 4 equals 0. Now this is just a two-step equation that I don't have any problems with. 2y equals negative 4. Divide both sides by 2, and y is negative 2. That's a negative answer. So this one is less than 0. So I put it up here. Next one. This is just a two-step equation. Remember, when we have a two-step equation, we save that variable to the very end. We take care of this minus 7 first. We're going to add 7 to both sides. Negative 4 plus 7 is 3. 3 equals 1/2 p. When I have a fraction in front of a variable, I multiply both sides by the reciprocal, which is 2 over 1. That cancels, and p is 6. Okay? So that's a positive. That would go in the solutions greater than 0. Next one. Be careful here. When you've got a minus outside parentheses, that means there's a negative 1 there. So we're going to bring down the 15. We're distributing a negative 1. So we get negative 4z. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3 equals 12. Remember, here's your equal sign. So the 15 minus 3, that's on the same side, so we're going to combine those. 12 minus 4z equals 12. Two-step equation. Negative 4z equals 0. Divide both sides by negative 4, and 0 divided by anything is 0. So that goes in the solution equal to 0. Now this last one, this was a little more complicated than I intended, but it's still okay. When you see a problem with decimals, get that calculator out. You can do this all with a calculator. This one just is not real pretty, okay? So find that equal sign. That's going to be important. Let's distribute. So we're going to do 0.4 times 3.2. We get 1.28x. And then we're going to do 0.4 times 2, which is 0.8. Don't lose your decimal. Minus x equals, copy the other side. Alright, now over here, I think I'm going to switch to blue. That green's hard to see. I see 1.8x, and this is, I'm sorry, 1.28x minus, there's a 1 there, right? So 1.28 minus 1 is 0.28x. And I'm going to copy the plus 0.8. Now, I'm down where I can move my smallest variable, so I'm going to subtract 0.28x from both sides. I get 8/10 equals 2 minus 0.28, I'm using a calculator, is 1.72x plus 1.8. Now it's a two-step equation. Subtract, subtract. I'm going to use my calculator again. 0.8 minus 1.8 is negative 1 equals 1.72x. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 1.72. When you do this in your calculator, you're going to get a big, long, scary decimal. We're going to just round it. What we really cared about is that it was negative, and it would go in the solutions less than 0. So that was a decimal problem. Little scary, but if you just look at your equation rules, it works.